Thanks for joining us today in the garden, and we are talking about something super important today, which is garden safety. We've talked about a lot of different things that you can do in your garden during these different segments, but safety is first and foremost the most important thing for gardening, talking about some of the long-term impacts that it can have on your body, and also just keeping your fingers, your breathing, all of those things safe during gardening season. So we have a lot of different things going on here. What are some of the most essential things that the gardener needs?
Sure. So I know this might come off, it sounds like an OSHA spiel, it sounds overly paranoid. Oh my gosh, I'm just cutting flowers. I don't need all this, this, that, and the other. There's a lot of examples, and if you start asking people of things that have happened to them, they will probably have a story of, yeah, I should have been wearing something different. Ask anyone who's wearing eyewear when they're weed whacking. It's probably because they had a close encounter and don't want to repeat that. And ideally, people will take that to heart and avoid that first encounter to begin with. So first and foremost, I think gloves are really important to have in the garden. They vary in terms of their dexterity and their levels of protection. I know for some folks they're just kind of uncomfortable. There's one more thing to remember, but they can be really helpful, and especially if you're carrying around an apron or you just throw them in your back pocket, you're always going to have them handy. There's a lot of gloves now that have specifically rose guards or even wrist guards that are going to help, because you may be thinking, oh, my fingertips and my palm is protected, but then the rose rakes you across the wrist, and now your gardening day is not so much fun.
Yeah, and I think that probably deters a lot of people from gardening if you're constantly getting injured or cut while doing it. So then what about some of the other things that we have here? Obviously, we're very familiar with masks.
Sure.
But this is for gardening purposes. So what would you need this for and why?
So a lot of people, when they're shopping for their herbicides, insecticides, general pesticides, a majority of those, even ones that are labeled organic, are going to tell you to wear some degree of respirator protection. You don't need a whole protective suit for most of them. Some are harsh enough that you may consider it, but it is recommended to use that because even an organic herbicide like pyrethrin, that's naturally plant derived, you don't want to be inhaling that in. Just because it comes from nature doesn't mean it's not potent. It can do you some harm. Other less organic pesticides or some stronger stuff that people might be spraying, you know, we even talked about like the moss applications a few weeks ago. There are going to be things that if you're spraying and it's up in the air, I would highly recommend some kind of, you know, not a breathing apparatus, but some kind of shield. You don't want to be inhaling that if you can avoid it.
Absolutely. And then some of these other items that we have here, this one, those, this, my favorite gardening tool, not just a stool, but also a knee pad. What would we need something like this for? Why is it important that people use these?
Definitely going to want to protect your joints. So right now I am on my knees on this brick and it's hurting. It's only been a couple minutes. Yeah. You do that for a full day's worth, you're going to be sore, but worse off, you may be doing some like long-term damage. So having pads in your joints, especially ones that are getting the worst of it, is not a bad idea.
So it's kind of like with sports. I mean, you wouldn't go out and play football without having pads on. Same kind of thing. Like you want to make sure you're protecting your body because this is something that you're investing your time and money into.
Exactly. You know, gardening is not an extreme sport, but it's also, you are prone to doing some risk, and taking a little bit of protection is going to help you in the long run.
And thanks for joining us today in the garden. If you want to learn more about gardening safety, you can head to our website, KDRV.com, and we will see you next time.